Hello and welcome to the Antimicrobial Resistance Implementation Toolkit developed by the California Department of Public Health. In this video, we will cover the protocol for handling duplicate isolate results. We cover the 3 different deduplication scenarios specified by NHSN and the steps to handle them. Duplicate isolates are when multiple isolates which share the same organism, patient, and source are collected on the same day. Because multiple isolates from the same day can produce conflicting results, NHSN specifies that facilities only report a single isolate with rules specifying the selection of duplicate isolates. Before we start eliminating any isolate, there are some ground rules that we should always follow. Do not merge or summarize test results across multiple isolates. Each event should be treated independently. And immediately eliminate any duplicate isolates without susceptibility test results. And finally, prioritize your sources. If you have duplicate invasive specimens, cerebrospinal fluid isolates will always trump blood isolates. And if you have duplicate non-invasive specimens, lower respiratory isolates will always trump urine isolates. Once these rules have been applied, it is time to determine what kind of duplicates we're dealing with. There are 3 main scenarios in deduplication. The first is when the same isolate is tested using the same susceptibility test with different results for each test. The second scenario is when the same isolate is tested using different susceptibility tests with different results for each test. And the third is when 2 isolates are tested across a panel of antimicrobial tests with different results in each test. Let's go over how to handle each. In this first case, we have multiple isolates with different results from the same test. When comparing results, check to make sure the results being compared are the lab's final interpretation. A final interpretation will always trump any other result. If there is no final interpretation, then the most resistant result should always be reported. In the order of most to least resistant, the results are not susceptible, resistant, intermediate, susceptible dose-dependent, susceptible, and finally, not tested. As a quick example, let's say we had a patient with 2 e-test results for the same organism against the same antimicrobial. If the first test result was intermediate and the second was susceptible, the more resistant result of intermediate is reported. Let's move on to our second scenario. In this second scenario, we have the same isolate with different results through different tests. While the situation is slightly different, the steps taken are the same as the first scenario. First, we see if there are results with a final interpretation. If there's only one remaining, that one is selected for reporting. Otherwise, we go with the most resistant result. For example, if we had a patient with 2 test results for the same organism, one being an MIC test with a resistant result, and one being an e-test with an intermediate result, then the result of resistant will be reported to NHSN. The final scenario is when we have different isolates across multiple tests with conflicting results. The setup is the same as other scenarios. A final interpretation result will always trump one that isn't a final interpretation. If there is no final interpretation, then a facility should report the isolate with the highest number of results that are non-susceptible or resistant. For example, in the case of a patient who has Candida albicans, isolated from 2 blood specimens on the same day with no final interpretation, and the first specimen tested resistant to 3 of 8 antimicrobials, while the second tested resistant to 4 of 8 antimicrobials, then the facility reports the second isolate to NHSN. Let's walk through a real example. In this case, we have 2 isolates from a blood specimen collected on the same day. It is tested across multiple antimicrobials, each with different tests and results. In this case, every antimicrobial has a final interpretation. Let's see what sets this up as a deduplication scenario. This is considered duplicate results because both come from the same source and were collected on the same day. We have to choose which to report. And because there are final interpretations for each set, we can't automatically select one over the other. For the first isolate, we have resistant and susceptible as 2 results. And for the second isolate, we have susceptible and non-susceptible as 2 results. Because both have an equal number of resistant and non-resistant results, the deciding factor is comparing the resistance level of antimicrobial agents. In this case, the isolate with the most extreme resistant result, non-susceptible, is reported. Therefore, in this reporting period, the first isolate is not selected for reporting and the second isolate is. Thank you for watching this video on deduplication scenarios for antimicrobial resistance reporting. Please check out our other videos on AR reporting, including information on selecting isolates, a walkthrough for invasive sources, a walkthrough for non-invasive sources, and a high-level overview of AR reporting.